Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. Album review time, gentlemen. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Belgian hardcore band Nasty.
Would not have said they were from Belgium. I need to start reading the notes. I need to start reading press notes. I would have put fucking cash down they were American. So, just putting that out front first. Duncan's wrong, and I'm glad Dave put out that information. Any other telling things that need to be mentioned now before I go and insert my rather large foot into my mouth during this review?
I don't think so.
Cool. You'll keep me right.
I will. The new album is called Menace. It's going to be released on September 25th via Century Media Records. So, Nasty. I've been listening to this band for a number of years. But as you say, I regularly forget that they're from Belgium. When you hear their albums, you automatically think American, without a doubt. I don't think you'd be able to tell their country of origin unless someone told you, which I obviously just have. If you've never heard of Nasty before, they're very much a band, I suppose, that lives up to their name. They produce nothing more than music that makes you want to punch someone in the face. This is hefty hardcore, which I'm thinking about coining as a new genre.
Hefty hardcore. That should be the
Hefty
name
hardcore.
of your record label, Dave. Hefty Hardcore Records.
Hefty hardcore.
Yeah.
I think that might catch on.
I think it would. It's fucking great.
I think it might.
Also, I get 10% because I copyrighted it right now. Copyright.
I got 1% because I'm here.
Yep. That's how capitalism works, Dave.
Right, okay. Fair enough. These guys have been on the scene since around 2004, and Menace follows up their 2017 release, Religion. It's also their first album on Century Media Records, and according to the band, Menace partially manifests itself during these globally turbulent times, and said, when the pandemic started, it hit us all pretty bad during the recording and writing process. We wanted to write about the craziness in this world. This world is a menace for you, but you are also in danger of becoming a menace to this world through the input given by it. We hope Menace shows that you're also in danger of becoming a menace to this world. Oh, sorry, I just read that again. We hope Menace shows you're not alone in facing the problems the pandemic brings with it, and gives you new energy to fight through its effects. There we go. Bit of info on Nasty and the new album Menace. I thought Religion was an okay album. Not my favourite Nasty release. I had a couple issues with the production of the album, and overall it maybe lacked a little bit of a hook for me. It was aggressive as fuck, and pretty loads of punchy riffs and all that littered through it, but there was nothing that really kind of stayed with me after I listened to it. The production on Menace, though, is a definite upgrade, if you ask me. Straight away. Everything just sounds more crisp. Those kind of big riffs really land with a lot more impact. And there's also some kind of nice little production tricks, which I'll get into in more detail as we talk about certain tracks. But production-wise, it's a thumbs up from me. What about you guys? What do you think? Production-wise?
Yeah. I'm the same. Yeah, it's punchy. It's really punchy.
It is.
When it needs to be.
Really well produced.
Yeah. I mentioned that I had some issues with the memorability of the last album. There wasn't enough of a hook for me, as I said. Menace definitely left more of an impression on me than the Religion, which is strange actually, because I'd say a lot of the tracks on this album probably veer away from a traditional structure than in some of their older albums. It feels a little bit more spontaneous in places, which I kind of enjoyed, and it's probably engaged me a little bit more for that reason. The album's only 29 minutes in length also, which kind of works in the band's favour. I found it an album that I could stick on like 2 or 3 times on the bounce because it's kind of short and sharp and to the point. And even though there's like 14 tracks in the release, it kind of flies in, if you know what I mean. Also felt like overall there were just more hookier moments on this album. The first 3 tracks I felt like they just kind of let the music do the talking, like we're going to absolutely pummel you on these first 3 tracks. Like No Frills, just kind of big riffs and breakdowns galore. And just when you start to think to yourself, okay, this is cool and all that, but like what else have you got? They hit you with a track called Be Careful, which it kind of starts with a kind of build up into some kind of pretty fast kind of pace riffs and drumming, into a more kind of mid-pace groove, and then a big hefty riff, hefty hardcore, and then boom, melodic chorus. And I'm thinking, oh, what is this little bit of melody thrown in here? Interesting. And that kind of sucked me back in, you know. Just as that moment I was thinking, oh yeah, this is cool, but I was starting to kind of switch off. That little bit of melody just kind of brought me back into the album, which I thought was pretty cool. That kind of addition of the melody, and it's, when I say melody, it's not like a saccharine sweet melody. It's still hardcore, but it makes all the difference in kind of keeping you like kind of intrigued in this album. And they drop a kind of similar kind of melodic earworm a few tracks later on Betrayer as well, and it's not too much either. Like they just do it enough to kind of break the track up. I'd actually like to hear them do a bit more of that, to be honest, because it only happens really on those 2 tracks, but it is quite effective if you ask me. That track that I was talking about, Betrayer, also had a bit of a kind of knocked loose vibe about it as well, which is, it's not a similarity that I usually notice with Nasty Material, but I heard it musically a few times on this album. Riffs wise, there's a lot of cool moments on Menace. I like the kind of like the short kind of rapid nature of Bullet Train. I thought Tricky Please had a really cool kind of rhythm to it. The riffs were really bouncy but still quite hard hitting, and I like the addition of the kind of more like melodic guitar work they used on Addicted and Ballad of Bullets. So I've realised I've spoken for quite a bit at length here, so I'm going to pass over to one of you guys. What do you guys think? Duncan, what do you think of this album?
So this is the first time I've heard of this band, so excuse my ignorance for not knowing the back catalogue. Yeah, for the most part, there's a lot going on here that I enjoyed. I do have my criticisms of it, and we'll get to them shortly. Yeah. I think the big thing I took away from it is, one, blessed with the runtime. An album like this shouldn't be any longer than it is. I think it stays its welcome just enough without becoming. There's a danger, especially when they're writing songs like this, which some are like shorter than a minute, some are like 2.5 minutes. There's a danger that they unfortunately all meld into one, and there are occasions where certain songs do feel like, I was like, we've moved on like 1 or 2 songs in the interim because they're so short, but there isn't that much of a dramatic change in the following song that they kind of bleed in, which I don't know if that's their intention or not. To me, some of the better elements, you talked about the kind of use of melody from a vocal perspective, which I do think they should be doing more of, because it definitely does break up the album. But I would argue that some of the melody used on the guitar, I think, opens up their sound. Ballad of Bullets, their final track, is where they really start opening up kind of more melodic sounding kind of guitar work in the background. And that to me made a huge difference in the sound. It's probably one of the more memorable tracks. But like quirky production, like on 666 AM, which basically the opening 10 seconds sounds like you've just been defeated on an arcade machine. Stuff like that, like, just make the song sound different and grab your attention in. The problem I had overall is when you don't have those kind of clever bits, you don't have segments where vocally they're doing something with a bit more melody in it, or where they're not using the guitars in a way which doesn't feel like just like a beat down after a beat down after a beat down. The tracks can become a bit homogenous, and it's difficult to ascertain how far you're into the album. You also, I think, rightly point out that song structure wise, they don't always follow your kind of standard A to B to A to B to C sort of thing. So that gets disorientating as well when listening to it as to whether or not we've started a new song or not. There isn't enough going on which makes it different, and it falls into some kind of the heavier hardcore trappings that mean to me in a way where I think death metal at times has a generic kind of core sound that, you know, it starts to not put me off, but it just becomes like a base level. That's what that sounds like. Kind of heavier hardcore stuff does as well, and they certainly have the reason I said they sound American straight away is because they sound like generic American hardcore band. There are bits in it which certainly elevate it, but that's the core of it, that's the backbone. So I listened to it a few times because it's short. I'll be honest, kind of post this, I don't know how quick I'll be to jump back to Nasty. It certainly delivers. Well, it's a nasty sounding record that, you know, it's angry, it's pissed off from start to finish for sure. But I think the stuff they start experimenting with on the release is where they should be moving, especially a band this far into their tenure. I'd be more interested to hear more melody. I'd be more interested to hear more stuff coming from the guitars to give them that depth that I think they need. It's just a contrast to their heavier sound. So it was a kind of overall inconsistent album for me. Kyle?
Yeah, I'm pretty much just going to parrot what you guys are saying. It's like, honestly, hardcore's not really my thing. I think it all sounds the goddamn same, and most of this album did sound exactly the same. I actually sat with my bass and learned some of the riffs, and it's like, oh, you're all in drop A. Awesome. Every song. Every single one. I was like, cool. Right. You know? And there were two songs where I actually didn't realise that they had gone from one song to the other, because it was almost exactly the same riff, and I'm like, okay, cool. But they did have their standout moments. And I'm like, like you said, like the last song, Ballad of Bullets.
Yeah.
It's if they flipped the entire, like, if they flipped their whole thing and did more melodic stuff with hardcore elements, I would have loved this. Like, this would be a 5 out of 5 album. That would have been made it really good. But because it's just so much of the same sort of hardcore thing, you know, it's like, it's just so much of it, and then it all gets very samey, and you start to switch off. Like you said, like track 4, it starts, you just get hit by that bit in Be Careful. Even note that one down too. Like, oh yeah, this one's not bad. It's got a bit of groove to it, you know, and it's changed it up a little bit. It's not just the same old. Yeah. And then 666 AM, it's got, you know, better songwriting. They switch things up a bit better, and it's a bit more interesting. And then when we listened to Addicted, it was like, oh, there's some notes in this one. Musical notes, you already know. But yeah, for me, it was like mostly just the same sort of like, yeah, okay, we've heard it. If they start incorporating those more melodic lines and passages into their sound going forward, I think they'll be a much better band for it and grow as musicians as well. I mean, I don't know, just based on what I've heard. I've never heard of them before, so just based on this one, I'd be like, okay, it's just a few guys sat in a room playing, you know, drop A guitar riffs in, you know, 8-tone Spanish tuning scale, which was most of them were in, or just straight minor. And I'm just like, okay, cool, yeah, that's great. And we've got 12 songs of this, or how many is it? 15? I don't know. 13 tracks of this. And they're all under 3 minutes, except for the last one, and that was too long for me.
Is there, like, have they experimented with these sort of things? I say experiment, have they used these techniques in previous releases, or is this the first time they've really started to kind of delve into that territory? Because it really was like maybe it's they don't want to change too much, so they're kind of dipping the toe in, so to speak, and it works for them. It really, really does. I would like to hope that moving forward, a bit more confidence on stuff like that. It's very easy to play the stuff you've been playing for 15 years. But to really push yourself out that comfort zone, I know sometimes hardcore bands get stuck with that you're selling out thing if you start to put melody in your music. I've never fucking understood that. I mean,
when it comes to that, you just say fuck you. If you don't like it, listen to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a back catalogue of stuff that doesn't have that in it. Listen to that if you don't like. But so, I don't know. It's certainly, I mean, when it comes to the grade, you'll see my grade reflects the same way I would review a death metal album, which I would have similar complaints about. So, not a bad album at all by any stretch of the imagination. And if you're into hardcore, I imagine there's plenty in here to enjoy. But as a kind of tertiary approach to the music from a position that I'm coming from, you know, there's moments of stuff that really gel with me, but the kind of overall thing isn't remarkable enough to really stand out. Like I'll be lucky if I remember much about this release at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned like production ideas and stuff earlier on, and they had some in there. I don't know if they were, to be honest, it wasn't some stuff I'd heard stuff I'd heard before, like the intro to 666 AM, you know, that kind of lo-fi like arcade style guitar. It was really cool. But then you've got a lot of the kind of usual suspects in there, you know, the kind of reverse cymbal effect before a breakdown on like Tricky Plays, or the kind of that radio kind of vocal effect on the title track, or even the loading of a gun before a breakdown, all that sort of stuff, like, or the siren thing as well. I think it was on Tricky Plays as well.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so.
It's a cliche thing, and that's maybe that actually plays into where they're from. Maybe that's why it's cliche, because they're not necessarily ingrained in that American scene where you're kind of forced to be maybe different from the band playing next to you. I don't know how active the hardcore scene is in Belgium, so maybe it's like you can do those techniques without sounding like every other band that you're going to be playing with live. So
they kind of fit their purpose. But as I said, it's nothing I haven't heard done 100 times before. And I suppose, kind of echoing what you guys said, that's my kind of main criticism of this album, where it's enjoyable and it packs a punch. It's not necessarily anything new. There were moments on the album that just kind of felt a little familiar. You know, sometimes it would be a riff here and there, other times it was a particular rhythm or pattern that felt a little, like you say, cliched. And I know they're a hardcore band, this is not like technical death metal with lots of tiny moving parts, but at the same time, although this does what it says on the tin, you're kind of looking for something that sets them apart from everybody else, you know, a distinguishing component that makes them, you go, oh, that's nasty, you know what I mean? Whereas at the moment,
that's what they've got at the end, though. That last track was amazing. I think I skipped through the second last track. I was like, let's just hear the riffs. All right, it's just the goddamn same as everything else. And the last one came, I was like, hang on a minute, these guys have some talent. Holy crap!
It's heavy, it's aggressive, it has a good production that really kind of gels with the music, but it is a little predictable. Okay, rating wise, I've been kind of back and forth on the rating for this album, and I'm still not 100% sure if my grading is right for this, but I'm going to go 3.5.
I'm going 3. That's my kind of standard. I'm not the biggest fan of this genre. I appreciate what they're doing, and I imagine the kind of hardcore, excuse the pun, fan base will enjoy it. There's certainly nothing in here that feels like they're being egregious to the genre or shitting on it by any stretch of the imagination. So, like, I mean, I can't imagine a hardcore fan not liking this. I'm just not a hardcore fan, so 3 to 5.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, hardcore fans will like it, and they might not like the more melodic stuff that we're liking, but
this is it. Yeah.
But I mean, especially since the band's been out since 2004, it's like, you're allowed to evolve. But I mean, fine. I was going to give it a 2, but I thought that's a bit harsh because it is really well played, and they are good at what they do, and they are showing some sort of like pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. So I'm going to go with 3.5 as well.
Nice.
3.5. Nice one. Guys, if you want to check this one out, it drops on September 25th on Century Media Records. The album is called Menace, and you can check out the band online, facebook.com/getnasty.